everybody. What an amazing day so far. This has been so exciting. Okay, so every time we meet someone new or introduce ourselves, we have an opportunity to really represent ourselves truly. But it occurs to me that so often we hide behind titles or awards or even accomplishments that other people hand to us. So let me explain. Let's say you're a bank teller, and maybe you're a really good bank teller, and possibly you really like it. But when you go home from work, you have this incredible garden that you tend to, and you grow and you nurture it, and there's beautiful patterns, and you look for new species of plants and flowers, and that's when you really come alive. I'm willing to bet that when you go to a cocktail party and someone says, "Oh, hi, what do?" You say, "I'm a bank teller." And it's bullshit. Because you're not a bank teller, you're a gardener. Like, you're totally a gardener, no matter what anybody says. But for some reason, because no one's ever paid you $1 to be a gardener, you're not willing to say it. And I think everyone here, everyone in the world really, has something inside of them that they're good at in that way. And maybe some of us do get paid to do this thing. I think in this room there's probably a pretty good amount of people that do, but not everyone does, but I know everyone's got that thing. And actually I think it would be helpful if everyone just took a second and closed their eyes and really thought about what's your superpower, what's your thing? And maybe you know it, and maybe it's kind of embarrassing, and maybe it's not. Maybe you have like an amazing singing voice that never sees the outside of the walls of your shower. But you know what it is. I'm not gonna make you share it, so don't worry. Anyway, keep that in mind, tuck it away. We'll get back to that in a minute. About 2 years ago, I took a job at this startup called GoldieBlox. Now, GoldieBlox is a mission-based company out to inspire the next generation of female innovators. Only 14% of engineers in this country are women, and that's a big problem. And if you wonder why, if you ever doubt why this is such an issue, I'd like you to consider how a seatbelt might be designed if a woman designed it. It'd be a very different experience, ladies. Engineers really do truly build everything in this world, and most of the people building this world are men right now. So we'd like to heal that. Now, looking around at why this might be, we notice that girls tend to lose interest in math and science, the building blocks of engineering, at around age 8. And this is a problem. And when you look at the things that sort of impact girls' worlds, you begin to understand why. So, for example, if you go to the toy store, there's the boys section, which is full of really cool stuff, like erector sets and Lincoln logs and science kits. And then you go to the pink aisle. And there are princess dresses and like Barbie dolls and makeup kits and vacuum cleaners and just a whole bunch of crap that tells girls that we value them for how beautiful they are. Thank you. Instead of what they're thinking. We care more about how they look than what they're thinking. We care more about making them beautiful than making them smart. And that's a huge problem. So that's why GoldieBlox was born. I took a leap of faith when I joined this company. I quit a really, really cushy job with cushy benefits and a cushy salary to join. And it was a huge deal for me. I'm a single mom, or I was at the time. And I had 2 kids, 2 young kids. And I really needed that security. But the risk of regretting not doing it felt so much scarier to me than the risk of doing it, so I did. The reasons for me to do it were pretty simple. Number 1, I'm a mother, and I care about nothing more than creating a more just and balanced world for my sons. 2 boys, there's irony in that. And number 2, I'm a feminist. So I understand the power of empowered women and empowered girls. So off I go. I joined this company. It turns out it was actually a pretty good risk to take. We enjoyed a pretty considerable amount of success right off the bat. It turned out that really the world wanted more for their girls. We weren't the only people that were sick of the pink aisle. And people from every walk of life, from every corner of the world reached out wanting to help us. We had NASA engineers, neuroscientists from Harvard, and top executives from every tech company, from Google to Twitter to Facebook, everyone reaching out, asking us how they could help. By all accounts, I was absolutely crushing it. And I was absolutely crippled by insecurity. It was such a hard time in my life. It's actually hard to even think back on it. But every morning I would wake up and I would have this feeling of, what am I doing here? So I didn't graduate from Harvard. I'm not a Stanford engineer. I didn't graduate from anywhere. I don't have a background in any of this stuff. I'm one of those girls that didn't pursue a career in STEM. And every morning as I get ready to go to work and start talking to these people about this mission we were on, I would think, who am I to be here? Who am I to inspire these girls? I can't even do it myself. And that was a question that really I asked myself over and over all the time. And the answer came to me, as it so often does for mothers, in the form of a poopy diaper. So bear with me. One morning I'm getting ready to go to work and I'm steeling myself against this day. And I'm blow drying my hair, and my eye falls down to the base of my hair dryer, and there's a zip tie around it. And I have this flashback to 7 years prior, and I'm going to tell you about this moment in time. It was 4 days after my first son was born. It was my first day home from the hospital. I'd had a C-section, so I was not in good shape. I had not had a 65-pound baby, so I looked a lot like Chris Farley. And I had just taken my first shower after having the baby, so I was completely naked. And I'm sitting in the baby's nursery. His name's Stone, by the way. It's not just some nameless baby. And he's screaming bloody murder. So Stone was what my mom called a very fussy baby, and what I tended to think of as like, oh, sweet Jesus, what have I done with my life? Like, he would never stop crying. And it turned out he had acid reflux, so when you put him on his back, it got really, really bad. I didn't know that at the time. But changing his diaper was particularly horrifying. So I'm sitting there, and Stone's sitting on the diaper changing table, and he's screaming, and his little face is purple, and I'm standing over him, and I'm thinking, I've broken my child, and I don't know how to do anything. I'm bad and wrong. And then all of a sudden he starts sputtering, and I look and he's covered in water, and I think, oh God, now my roof's leaking. It's November. The baby, and then I look and I realize, okay, that's not water. Like, my milk has come in. So I'm staying there with like 2 shower faucets on my chest. The baby's crying, he's covered in poop. I've like hit my limit, so I'm going through the Rolodex of all those worthless books you read before you have your first baby. And this phrase stands out to me, and it's white noise. So now I'm going, shh, shh, and he's looking at me like, what the hell are you doing, right? So I'm like, fine. So I pick the baby up off the changing table, covered in poop, covered in breast milk. I put him on the floor. I run into the bathroom and I grab my hairdryer. I run into the kitchen. Run is, I'm using that term very liberally. I was like lumping into the kitchen. And grabbed a zip tie and took the hairdryer, lashed it to a curtain rod, literally shoved the diaper changing table into a closet, put the baby back on top, flipped the hairdryer on, and he stopped crying. Okay, thank you. What I realized that morning as I was blow drying my hair is, that's engineering. That's all it is. It's solving problems using simple machines. It's taking what's around you and fixing a pattern that you don't like, something we're trying to teach girls. So I had waited far too long to let my experience as a mother give me the confidence that I needed to step forward and really continue to make magic in this job. And I realized that I'm not alone. Every mom's an engineer. Like, we invented engineering. Mom hacks are the original engineering courses, and they don't give out diplomas for this stuff. And, you know, I recognize that putting a hairdryer in my curtain rod is not the same as a degree from MIT, but it really got the job done that day. And it felt more important. So every mom's an engineer, every mom's an innovator, and owning that kind of stuff is magic. It really changes the way you go through your day. So that changed my experience at GoldieBlox. It changed the way I approached everything I did, and it gave me a lot of swagger when I walked into these meetings, and it helped me make more of what was already really beautiful. So I decided, what could this mean? What if more people were willing to own sort of a title that no one had given them, that they were going to bestow upon themselves? So for me, I'm an engineer. And I think that's the key element. I think encouraging other people to do this is really the key element. And I know because I've seen it myself, and I'm going to tell you about that. So this job has really afforded me a lot of amazing opportunities to do a lot of amazing things, and there have been some really cool speaking opportunities in particular. And my favorite one, by far, has been, I was invited to do a keynote at this youth leadership conference. It was about 200 kids, and their teachers had all identified them as having potential for leadership. They weren't necessarily doing great at school, they weren't necessarily the most stand-up kids, but they had potential, which was really exciting. These are all teenagers. So I went into this room, and there's an auditorium full of 200 teenagers sitting there. And I got up on stage, and I told my story of GoldieBlox, and I told my story of sort of finding myself and feeling proud of who I was, and I'm an engineer, and you know, they were just like very polite. And then it was time, you know, they were great, but come on. And then it was time for Q&A, and I'm looking at them, and I realized, okay, there's absolutely nothing they can ask me, and no answer I can give them that's gonna really help them get to where they need to be, help them own what they're good at. So I said, okay guys, close your eyes, think about your special thing. And for them, the directions were a little different. It was like, if your Instagram feed is amazing, you're a photographer. You know, if you write an incredible blog, you're a writer. Like, it gave them very specific instructions, but afterwards I said, okay, now I want you all to say it out loud. And I sat down on the stage and I put the mic down. Now, the PR guy from our company was there, and he was sitting in the back, and he like went white. He's like, no, you're going off script. This is not good. And it was crickets. Like, of course, this is a group of teenagers. They weren't even close to wanting to do this. But of course, slowly but surely, the room started to stir, and finally, one young girl in the front raised her hand, and she said, I'm an artist. I said, that's wonderful, and everyone applauded. Well, it caught on, and one by one, kids started to stand up until a young man in the back, he stood bolt upright. And if you were to cast him in a movie, he'd be like the tough guy. He had the baggy jeans and the hat on backwards, and he was sort of the tough guy archetype. And he grabbed the mic and he said, I'm a poet. Not what we were expecting to hear. He went to hand the mic back, and I grabbed mine and I said, wait, is there something you can share with us? This is incredible. And he said, yes. So he picked the mic back up, and he gave this beautiful piece of spoken word poetry called I Am the Difference. And it talked about how he was going to be the first person in his family to go to college. He was going to be the one to change the pattern in his neighborhood, that he was the difference in his community. And that stanza, I am the difference, that's who he was. I'm an engineer, he's the difference. So he sat down. But that wasn't the moment. A few minutes later, this kid in the back, now in that same movie archetype, this kid is the geek. He'd be cast like Anthony Michael Hall would play him. He stands up, he raises his hand, and he says, I'm a musician, I play the trombone. And his hand's kind of shaken, and You know that, this is the kid that's going to be everyone else's boss when he gets older. But at this phase of life, he's just a band geek, right? And it's not serving him well right now. But at that moment, he was so proud of that. This environment we had created together was making him so proud of that. It was transformative for him, I believe that. And he sat back down. But that wasn't the moment either. The very next person that stood up got interrupted by this kid in the back corner. Now, in our movie archetype, this is the jock. This kid stands up, and a circle around him turns to look at him because he's very popular, incredibly good looking, he's wearing a hoodie. He stands up, and without the mic, he says, and he points at the kid with the trombone. He says, "That's my brother. He is a musician. I love you, man. I'm proud of you. I'm sorry I've never said that before." And those two boys met in the middle of the auditorium, and they embraced each other. That kid was a brother in that moment. So the power of recognition, right? So what do you do? Who are you? If you ask me what I do for a living, I'll tell you about my awesome gig at GoldieBlox. But if you ask me simply what I do, I'm likely to tell you I'm a writer, though I've never been published. I'm a photographer, though I've never been featured in a gallery. I'm a plumber, I'm a teacher, I'm a psychologist, I'm a damn good mother, and I'm an engineer. And I know I'm not alone. Thanks.